How you doing, my dude? Welcome to the show.
Oh, thank you. Thank you for having me. It's really, truly an honor and a pleasure.
I feel like every single time you write an article, you ruffle feathers and you freak people out because you wrote an essay in the New York Times that basically said, even if Biden and Kamala win, that's not going to take away your Trump depression. What does that mean?
Well, the problem with the Biden-Harris ticket is not that it doesn't end the Trump era. Obviously, that would be great. Like,
Hmm.
no, we don't want Donald Trump to be president anymore. You had 8 years of the first black president, and for all the limitations of that presidency, because of the limitations of the US presidency, uh, it represented for a lot of people the idea that their country was slipping away from them. And then you have the retrenchment with the voting in of Donald Trump and the systems that help Donald Trump come to power. So if we look at that and we say, well, we want something different, we can't then rely on the exact same institutions to produce better results for us. What we have is just a going back to something that feels more comfortable for a large portion of the country.
Are you arguing that basically Donald Trump has been so extreme that now someone like Biden coming in and saying like I'm going to bring you normal seems like a left or a radical policy when in fact he's just proposing like back to the norms? Because I mean they have come out and said like guys, we're not the most radical, but we're definitely not just coming with a back to normal approach.
Well, the problem is you do have to be that radical in this moment, right? Like because one, the threat of Donald Trump was so much bigger than just even what is so scary of like white supremacist violence coming cascading across the nation. That's huge, right? But what we're dealing with on a global scale, as we see now with the fires out in California, all of the cyclones forming in the Atlantic Ocean right now, a global pandemic, is that we're on the brink of looking at our own destruction and something that we can stop and that we just have very little time to do. And so there's an acceleration of all of the problems that we face under 4 years of Donald Trump. If we go back to normal or even left of normal, like just like, oh, we're going to tinker around some things and make some things better and make some people's lives a little bit better, that doesn't do anything in this very short window that we have to transform our institutions to deal with the huge crises that we're facing.
Biden and his people, if you read between the lines, it feels like they're saying, look, we're trying to win the election. That's the most important thing, is to win the election. And now because America has the electoral college, you're not just trying to win based on a popular idea, you're trying to win based on an idea that can get you some of those swing states. So if Biden came out with some radical policies, as you say, I mean, he's already at a place in the race where he's not comfortably beating Donald Trump. He's just like slightly ahead in some of these places. Do you think it's worth him risking it and saying, like, all right, here's radical, when most of America's electorate, especially in these core places, is saying, like, oh, yeah, we're not going to vote for radical?
Well, it's the question then is it most important to win this election or to have a country primed to do what's necessary for it to save itself? Right. And those right now are two different ideas because the messaging from the Biden Harris campaign is not about, again, the sort of radical transformation that this country needs in order to continue to survive, to make a planet that's able to sustain life, to be able to destroy institutions that are founded upon white supremacist violence, all of that. Like we're not there. So if the question is it more important to win an election than to do that? Then sure, Biden is doing exactly what needs to be done. But the problem is that I see in that is that winning this election does so little with what time we have left to course correct on these things. If we had 20, 30, 40 years more
Right, right.
with regards to the timeline with climate disaster, maybe we give it a shot for 4 years and say, okay, yeah, we got this. We can buy some time here
Right.
and then we can do something else. But we just don't have that. So if the platform that's been afforded to Joe Biden, if we get messaging that's about what actually needs to take place, like what we have to do, how deep we have to dig as Americans, then even in the event of his loss, what you have is a citizenry that is then looking and saying, well, this can't stand, obviously, like this is beyond the pale, right? And so then you have people activated ready to do what's necessary to oust a second term of Donald Trump.
Yeah, but no, listen to what you're saying right now. Now you're saying, well, if Biden was more honest and then we lay out the plan and he's like more radical, then people will know what needs to be done. And then after another 4 years of Donald Trump, then we can get things done. My question to you would be, if Donald Trump got another 4 years and Donald Trump had additional Supreme Court justices and more federal courts, appointees and more, Donald Trump could basically entrench a foundation that is so deep in America that people couldn't undo it, no matter how many presidencies they have coming forward. Does that make sense? Or do you think that then there would be like some revolutionary power in the people that would make things move?
I hear what you're saying, but I'm saying that if we are to actually reckon with an American past and try to forge an American future in which we lay out the ideas and live out those ideas that are supposed to be at the heart of this country, right? What we're not going to get to that with sort of like mealy mouth centrism and laying that out. What we are going to get is 4 years of Joe Biden, right? Like that.
But wait. If I could interrupt that, that's what I'm saying. I find interesting about this. Couldn't someone argue that, hey, it's going to be a lot easier for somebody like even you, Mychal, to push a Biden-Harris administration to be more aggressive, to be more radical on economic policies, on unemployment, on wage gaps, on taxing Wall Street and the uber rich and the corporations? Wouldn't it be easier to push them when they're in power than to push them when they're trying to get the power? Or do you think that the two are not mutually exclusive?
I think you can't wait until they're in power, because then they don't owe you anything, right? Like they don't act as if they owe you anything. And I just say that as someone who lived through 8 years of the Obama presidency, and people were saying, well, you have to acknowledge like what he's up against, and you have to see, and you can't push him, and it's like, so what point are we comfortable with pushing them, right? And so you say to them now, like, look, if you're going to represent me, if you're going to win my vote, this is what I demand now, and this is what I need from you now. This is what the country needs from you now, because we wait until then, and then they're comfortably in power, and that's the thing that they wanted anyway, right? And so now that they have that, and I hear your point around like thinking about governance after you win the election, because winning the election is the only way in which you get to enact these plans anyway. But the problem is that we're looking at a Joe Biden who has 50 years of public service under his belt and has a record that we can point to that doesn't pretend that he would be the kind of figure that would be looking for any sort of radical change, right? Like, so if we look at his actual track record and we look at the policies that he has pushed for, we can't trust that he simply changes right now before this monumental election unless we're willing to push him now.
If someone's reading your book, they may come away from it feeling like you're saying all is lost, it's a zero-sum game and there's almost no point. But I know you as a person, and I know that although you challenge the ideas of America, you're not one who doesn't believe in inaction. So what action would you want people to take once they've read your book? What is the idea that you're trying to get across to people?
I think this the very first thing for me, as I'm challenging sort of the narrative that Americans have told themselves about America, right? It is saying, we keep saying over and over to ourselves, America is the greatest nation on the face of the earth. America is the beacon for democracy. And it's just like, well, those things just don't stack up if we like look at the record of America. So we have to break ourselves free of just simply repeating over and over the stock narrative that has us like high on our own delusions. So once we do that, it really is a matter of them breaking free of the sense that only through individual action can change come about, because
Right.
that's not the way that it has worked throughout the course of human history, right? What happens is we understand that we have a responsibility to one another. It's difficult because in this country we can't even agree that it's good to wear a mask to protect your neighbor from an airborne illness that has caused a global pandemic. We can't even get to that point. So I know that we're up against something incredibly tough that's ingrained in the American character, in the
Right.
American identity of who we are as rugged individualists and people who just take care of ourselves. And if everyone does that, then we're all better off. We're not. We're not there. We're not. That's not how it works as a human. The reason that Homo sapiens have been able to survive all this time, a large part of it is it's not just the thumbs, right? Like it's the fact that we are social creatures. We depend on each other. We help each other. And if we lose sight of that, which we have, especially in an American context, we've lost sight of the idea that we have responsibility to care for each other on a large scale.
Right.
Well, then we have no hope whatsoever.
Once again, you have left me more depressed than when I met you. And that's why I always appreciate talking to you as a human being. No, but on the real though, you always make me think. And I hope everybody reads the book, because it is a challenging read, because it makes you question all the things that you've been told. But I think it's necessary for us to keep on doing that. So Mychal, thank you so much for joining us on the show.
Thank you, Trevor. I owe you a drink for all the depression that I've caused.
Nah, man, I have too much fun chatting to you. Thank you, my dude.
Thank you, Trevor. Thank you so much.